Okay, I am recording this with 15 minutes left in my work break. I should be having lunch, but I'm not doing that. Instead, I am here, very frantically recording this episode because the lighting is really nice outside. I'm trying to spend less time inside my room and more time just at least looking outdoors, if not always spending time outside, because it is getting hotter here. So this is me just scrambling to make something work because I don't want to keep waiting, and I have accepted that maybe the first 4 or 5 episodes are not going to be the best quality, but they are going to be what begin this practice. I'm like out of breath doing this already. I'm like out of breath already. A lot of what I have felt in the undercurrents of this week has been sort of like a call for me to start locking in when it comes to my creative practice, when it comes to committing, when it comes to really setting an intention in terms of my creative expression, the kinds of people I want to connect with, the kinds of work I want to do on a day-to-day basis. And what I'm noticing is that a lot of those choices are seemingly out of my control, but a lot of others are things that maybe I shouldn't be feeling so helpless about. I have a work from home job. It's fully remote. It's not the most intellectually stimulating job. Frankly, it's the most boring part of my day. But I don't want to be bogged down by that. I don't want to feel like this kind of sucks the soul out of everything else that I do in a day. And so I'm thinking about whether I can start finding other ways to make this interesting or more fulfilling. Because it's a remote job, I can do it from anywhere. Maybe I start cafe hopping a bit more often. I am getting paid for this, so I could use that money to invest in my own tourist activities around the city. So that's been a very major theme for this week of, yes, a lot of things are perhaps not really in my control, but that doesn't mean I can't make them work in my favor, at least in tinier ways. So a lot of the things that I found are also a little bit more perhaps action oriented than last week. The things that I might be using in the near future, or thoughts and ideas that might come in handy in my own creative practice going forward. The first thing I found is a paper published in the Journal of Future Studies. Again, taking into account the whole thing about me very consciously wanting to advance my career in futures and foresight, in speculative design research, was this paper that I found by, I'm afraid I'm going to have to butcher the last name, but Romano Theunissen. It's called The Futures Cone Reimagined, a framework for critical and plural futures thinking. I must confess, I haven't done a lot of research into what the Futures Cone is, and perhaps I should have started this podcast after doing that, but in my haste, I really haven't done a lot of reading. But from what I'm understanding, just reading this abstract, is it's a very powerful visual metaphor when people deal with design studies or design research, and they are arguing for a more aligned application of that tool. I think personally I'm someone who enjoys judging a book by its cover, not in the sense that the proverb has come to be, but I am someone who tends to make split-second decisions about whether something interests me or not, and I do perform those kind of on face value a lot of the times. And a lot of the key words that I found interesting looking at this paper were decolonial perspectives, foresight theory, participatory practices. I think what I'm understanding about myself from this is that I want to gain a better understanding of how design could be maybe not something that is done behind the scenes, something that most people aren't really aware of, and how it can start to be transformed into this communal practice, one that begins the whole undertaking of whether it's for a product or for a service, something that, helps a lot of other people. The concept of participation is something that should be ubiquitous and fully aligned with the people it's meant to serve. And I think that's frankly what really drew me to this paper, because that's something I am doing a lot of research into in my own independent practice, and it's nice to see that this is gaining more and more traction. Oh, the sun's out. The next thing I found is a report by the UK Arts Council titled AI Technologies and Emerging Forms of Creative Practice. Again, I think it becomes so clear how the dots kind of connect in terms of the things that I enjoy, things that I really want to learn more about. So this report is a 6-year-long analysis on how AI and AI-related technologies have been facilitating perhaps creative changes. I wouldn't even term it as growth, but how the creative practice has been evolving since 2019 due to the onset of AI being used as a tool to further this practice. What's nice to see is that this isn't a paper or a report that only glosses over the ramifications of what it means to use AI in a creative practice, and also really fairly acknowledges a lot of the negative consequences that it might have, not just on an individual level, but also more on a societal or economic, a real communal level as well. Since I have only read a little bit of the report, I can't go into complete detail as to whether they're taking a side in this. I hope they aren't, because they do mention on the website that they aren't really advocating for the use of AI in creativity, but they are trying to gain a better understanding of how creators are responding to this new tool they've found and what can be done to evolve with the times. I would like to understand better where they think this is going, and I would love to return to this with my own thoughts one day. The third one is a website, and I'm so sad because I don't remember who built this. Oh, it's a person named Shivani Shah. They created this for Cell app called the No Free Work Reply Generator, which I think is so useful and such a wonderful little tool that they've created. It's just, you can press one button and it generates a reply on how you can politely decline free labor. As a creative practitioner, as a designer, a developer, whatever, it's nice to see that there are small tools that I can use to support myself better and stand up for myself, because there's been a lot of times where I have readily offered when you've not got a lot of traction. It really does become the only way to get a foot in the door, and I'm a generous person. I like doing things for free, but also at some point I need to stop people pleasing and ask for what I'm worth. So coming across this on my LinkedIn page this week was a very gentle reminder of that. I read this really eye-opening essay by one of the founders of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, this week, called When to Do What You Love. It's not what are your passions or what do you really love, but more about the timing, which I really appreciate, because if there's anything the last 2 weeks have taught me, it's that I could have all the passion in the world. It could be the most divinely aligned opportunity. It could be my sole purpose. But if the timing is not right, the door's just not gonna open. When to do what you love, and it's a very poignant example of how to time your life a little bit more pragmatically. I've never been a very practical person, so usually when people give me advice, career advice, it just goes in one ear and out the other because I cannot stand people telling me what to do. But this was one of the chance encounters where there were some insights in here that I really enjoyed. I think a lot of people who are early in their careers, early in their education, a lot of the times it's not so much about not knowing what to do, but it could also be about having so many interests and so many different routes of forks in the road that the challenge then becomes figuring out which one is perhaps the most wise route to take at the time, and what might be the wisest route for someone who is in their 30s, who's kind of got a better understanding of what works for them and what doesn't, versus someone who is like me, not even fresh out of college yet, being able to understand the rhythm of life, to understand when to ride a wave and when to hold your breath, when to soar up, it's been a challenge, but I'm not one to cower away from it. So definitely, if you're someone who's my age or younger and just trying to understand which path to take, this is a very, very good article. Another article that I found completely by chance while I was scrolling through Instagram was by this person named Sadaf Sheikh, titled "I Lost My Ambition Completely and Life's Actually Never Been Better." How fitting. Don't get me started on how my last month has been going, because I have been through hell and back trying to defend my own dreams against myself. And what I have understood or just resignedly accepted right now is my ambition is going to take me only so far, and there's nothing I can do beyond that. I have spent the last year and a half single-mindedly working towards one goal, and it's just completely crumbled after reaching it. It just feels like there's no end to it. There's always another goalpost, there's always another finish line, another milestone to check off, another LinkedIn announcement I could make. And while I do appreciate and I am forever grateful for the fact that I have gotten here because of my ambition, that the discipline and the effort and the person it's made me is who I'm proud of, I just can't live like that. At least not right now. I am so used to going full speed that right now, and this is frighteningly so, but I just want to stand still. It's not that I don't want to grow. I just want to wake up, read a book, have my cup of coffee, do my job for a couple of hours, talk to the screen once a week, and just not think beyond that. And I'm not sure what has suddenly brought about this change, because I have always been someone who, excuse my French, has lived with a fire under their ass. And that has been my prime motivator for everything I do. And to not have that real impetus to wake up in the morning and fight for something, it is very terrifying to not have that. It makes me question, beyond, like, underneath all of this ambition, am I just someone who is incredibly lazy? Am I someone who doesn't really have that much of a drive to achieve anything? Would I rather just, flop around, watch TV all day? It's almost like I'm ashamed of who I am without my ambition. And that's exactly the thought process I would like to dismantle this year. That I am only as worthy as my next big goal. This was probably the most provocative of my finds this week, but also something that I needed to read, needed to talk to myself about. And finally, and this is my favorite one of the week, Emma Ohun, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, but this wonderfully talented creative technologist on Instagram is doing a matchmaking service for this weekend, for Valentine's Day, where they are sitting through every single person that fills out their form and manually matches people based on their interests and what they're looking for. So I did sign up. It's called humanfriends.club. You could probably sign up in the next 2 days and you may or may not get matched. But oh, pins and needles. Oh, my legs did. Oh, ow, ow, ow. I think this week has been very. I needed this week. It has not been comfortable, but I can sense that there is a rhythm to all of this chaos. And who was that quote by where you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards? That's how life feels right now. It's a very, I don't know why this is happening, but it must be happening for a good reason. And I have no choice but to ride the wave, to accept that life is always going to have an adventure that I don't have planned. And all of the good that has happened to me in my life so far has more or less happened to be without my intention. When I got rejected from my top choice, I was heartbroken. But now looking back, if I hadn't gone to the one I did, I would be a completely different person. And it has changed me for the better for the rest of my life. It's honestly my true home, and I'm dying to go back. But that's not something that I could have foretold 4 years ago. So at the moment, that's the only faith I'm holding in my heart. I don't have much in terms of optimism about the future, but I do have faith. And faith's gonna have to be enough. And that also seems to be the astrological climate for the week ahead. Exactly 1 week from now is the solar eclipse in Aquarius, which if you'd like to do your own research about what that means for you, I highly encourage you to do that. But it is a lot of final moments of shedding, a lot of moments of, if you want to move forward, you are gonna have to let go of a lot of baggage. And yeah, that is how life feels. It's a lot of dumping old bags away, clearing out the storage, making space for new. My new life is going to cost me my old one. My old habits, my old identity, my old routines that keep me comfortable. It's very easy to talk about these things. It's very easy to, go on long tangents about how discomfort is one of the only ways to achieve growth and success. But what it is a lot of loss. It's a lot of grief. And I am not someone who processes loss very quickly. So what this is going to look like for me going forward is, how do I accept that loss while not fully crumbling in that feeling? And I am quite excited to see how I grow in that regard. My next week, I'm hoping, carries a lot more gentle softness to it, and I hope to take care of myself better. And I think I'm gonna end this week here, because I have a meeting that I am late to, and I'm not making the same mistakes as last time.